Wanted to bring folks together and have a chance to talk. Obviously, it's no secret we've had a series of situations involving our men's basketball program over these last weeks. And I think as you'll spend more time with me, you'll learn that it's important to me that we deal with these kinds of situations head on. And we're going to be as transparent as circumstances allow us to be. And today we thought it was important that we discuss these allegations and how we intend to work to rebuild the public trust in our men's basketball program here at the University of Illinois. A couple opening comments. One, we will not today talk in any detail about the specific allegations involving our student athletes, the individual cases. Any questions, any comments on those will be deferred to a later date. I would remind everyone that under our system, people are innocent until proven guilty. We will allow that system to play its course and see where the facts lead us with respect to those cases. Also, quickly on another matter, really entirely a quick comment on our women's basketball program. I did issue a brief statement yesterday. I imagine most of you had a chance to read it, but did have an opportunity here these last weeks to take a pretty deep dive into our women's basketball program and feel very confident in the leadership that Matt Ballant and our assistant coaches are providing to that team and those student athletes, and looking forward to helping them turn the page on what has unquestionably been a very difficult chapter in their history, and helping them build for a successful future with women's basketball here at the University of Illinois. Talking about men's basketball, we recognize that we have had a number of situations here. I understand people's concerns. I understand their frustrations. I understand them because I share them. I certainly understand and share the frustrations and concerns that people feel about the allegations that have surfaced involving some of our men's basketball student athletes. These are serious allegations. We will never shy away from that. We recognize how important and concerning these allegations could be and are. It's interesting in a role like this one. Really, I'm the caretaker of our athletic program, of our brand, of our reputation, and our role here is to develop our student athletes to be the best that they can possibly be, athletically, academically, socially. And we set a high bar, a high standard. I've talked about that every opportunity that I've had since I've been here to talk about the standard of excellence that we have for our program in every facet of our student athletes' experiences. And when something happens, as these allegations have, to potentially put that high standard at risk, we take that very seriously. Now, on the same token, we all recognize that we are a part of a great university. And just across the street, there are 40,000 18 to 24-year-olds who are learning a lot about who they are, who are receiving a world-class education. They're developing into adults who will go off and be incredible members of our community and of society. Part of that process is understanding that they will make mistakes. I did when I was that age. I'm sure John did. I'm sure almost everybody here did. And so we have to find that balance between helping our student athletes grow into responsible adults while also maintaining this high standard for our program. And most of the time, those two goals align. Every once in a while, there's some tension, and we have to work through those individual circumstances and find the best outcome for our program and for our student athletes. And that's what we're in the process of doing now. I want to talk for a moment about John Groce. It's been interesting these last weeks. Obviously, I came out a few weeks back and made some strong statements supporting John and his continued leadership of our men's basketball team. That position has not changed. Continue to believe very strongly in the leadership that John is providing. I disagree that if any of these allegations are proven true, that necessarily requires that John no longer be our men's basketball coach. The reality is that there are a lot of great things happening in our men's basketball program right now. Our student athletes are achieving academically, they're doing good work in our community, and they're doing the right things in the gym to continue to build themselves into a championship caliber program. I've had an opportunity these last weeks to spend a lot of time with John, sit down and share philosophy, to talk through values, to understand the things that we're doing with our men's basketball team, to be sure that we are doing these things, accomplishing our goals of building championship students, championship athletes, championship people. And I've got great confidence that John is the right person to continue to lead us in that respect. It's interesting because so often anymore we live in an instant gratification society, and people want to assume that if the best way to handle a situation is what often can be construed as the easiest way. They want a clean slate. Well, that's not always the best decision. And my job, as you all can appreciate, isn't to make the easy decision, it's to make the right one. And in certain cases, as in this one, the right decision is to roll up our sleeves and get down in the trenches and work hard with someone who you trust, who you value, who shares the same vision that you have for a program, and to work together to put that program in a position to be as successful as we all want it to be. There are times to make changes. I've shown that we're not afraid to do that. And there are times, like now, to get down and to get to work and to build something that we can all be proud of. And that's where we are as a program. So I'm excited to work with John. We already started talking about strategies, approaches, things that we can do with our team and with our fans, again, to help restore that public confidence in Illinois basketball. This program means a lot to a lot of people. It's a responsibility that John and I take very, very seriously. So we look forward to engaging our fans, our alumni, everyone who has a vested interest in our program and moving this thing forward so that we can have that program that we're all so desperate to have, that allows us to celebrate championships and to celebrate the great work that our student athletes do on the court, in the classroom, and in their respective lives. And at this point, I'll turn it over to John and invite him for his comments.
Obviously, as Josh said, I understand others' concerns. I do. I take the seriousness of these allegations very seriously. For us, I keep going back to what we've talked about from day one, our mission to help our players grow as people, students, and athletes, and in that order. And that has not changed. And we're going to continue to do that. Obviously, I'm anxious to continue to work with Josh in that regard and continue to educate our players, our student athletes on choices. I say to them all the time, and many of you that are sitting here today have heard me say it often, that the greatest gift God gives us is the gift to choose. And I think as an educator, as a teacher, which our staff and myself sees us being, or that we are, we've got to continue to find ways to do that and to do that better. We're constantly evaluating that. So, again, I'm anxious to work with Josh. He mentioned some different things, programming that we'll be doing, to continue to help our players grow and make good choices. And that's what we want. And that's what we're about. Again, we take it seriously. We do. We understand everybody's concerns, and I understand that. But I can tell you that we're committed to doing it the right way and building a championship caliber basketball program and having a culture where our guys grow while they're here to become people that learn to make great decisions when they're finished playing for us at the University of Illinois.
John, have you perceived any change in the way that you've been received around town by fans and people generally since the Kendrick arrest?
In terms of the first part, perceive, no. Obviously, as Josh mentioned, we're not going to, mention any specific situations or instances at this point relative to those. But no. And I've been out quite a bit, Rob, wearing orange proudly. So no, I haven't.
Whether fair or not, there are a lot of fans, even though these are just allegations at this point, that feel this team might be undisciplined off the court. How do you fight against that, or
Sure.
how do you change that?
Sure. You mentioned unfair or not. Obviously, we spend a great deal of time, Jeremy, with our players, team meetings, small groups, one-on-one, educating them on choices and making great decisions. I do think there's a difference between choices and discipline. In terms of discipline, we've shown, as you well know, in the past, that there is an accountability piece to this, and we will discipline our players if need be, if substantiated. Obviously, we want to be very firm, but yet fair. And I understand. I'm the leader of the men's basketball program, and I always look inward. And for us right now, the thing I say, what can we control? And that is the environment, the culture, our discipline when it comes to certain behaviors, consequences. At the end of the day, do I think that we can control choices 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? That's hard. We can educate them, and we are committed to doing that. Josh and I are committed to doing that, and we're going to continue to do that at an even more pronounced level.
And I'd chime in here too and add that being a coach isn't altogether unlike being a parent. And you try and educate your kids, you try and talk to them about right from wrong. But at the end of the day, like John said, at some point, whether you're a parent or a coach, you got to turn your kid loose and send them out into this big world that we have. And they're going to make decisions. And we hope that the vast majority of the time they make the right ones. But we also recognize that on occasion they may make the wrong ones. And that doesn't make, when a kid does that, it doesn't make the parent a bad parent, and it doesn't inevitably make the coach a bad coach. But it's all a part of this growth and education process that we strive for with our student athletes.
John, I think you can still practice until the end of the tournament. Is that correct?
Yeah, we could. Rob, I thought our team, when you put together what they did for Europe with the 10 practices, the 4 games, the season, Malcolm Hill playing in USA basketball and preparing for that, you put all that together, and obviously we had some injuries. It's been well documented. We have some guys that needed some treatment and rehab and so forth. We thought it was best for us to take a couple weeks here to try to get our feet back on the ground, give those guys a chance to get mentally and physically refreshed, give them a chance to tackle the academic part of things and really focus in on that. And then obviously when they get back from spring break, we'll get back together and start working. Weight room, conditioning, basketball, obviously personal development as well, academic development's ongoing. But, those things really, we start to get the basketball and the athletic piece in full swing here when they get back from spring break.
John, what was your message to players maybe before all this happened the last month, and what's the message been the last couple of weeks as these things have developed?
To understand that, it's important, the choices, Jeremy, is really in a nutshell what I've talked to them about. Making good choices. We spend an inordinate amount of time addressing that with examples and, like I said, team meetings and small group discussions about it and one-on-one, and we wear it out, and we'll continue to do that. And we'll continue, as Josh and I have more discussion, to even enhance that programming. Because we want them to leave here, as I said, making good decisions, good choices. That's part of the education piece. So really that's what we focused on, Jeremy. And we focus on that year-round, to be honest with you. We do quite a bit of it.
That much time into that particular point, where does maybe the disconnect come where you've had 4 arrests in 8 or 9 months and just made the not good choice?
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily disconnect, Scott. I think our guys, we've got good guys. I think they listen. Can you make mistakes or make bad choices? Obviously you can. I think you see that across the board, and for us right now, it's very similar to what Josh just said. As a parent, I know I've got 3 children. I'd like to think Allison and I spend a ton of time educating Connor and Camden and Kate. That doesn't mean they do the right thing all the time. It's hard to, control choices. We're doing the best we can to educate our guys. I feel very comfortable with that. But again, Josh and I have talked, and we're going to make it even more pronounced and continue to add more programming, including guest speakers and different things that, we're being very open-minded about it. I think Josh takes very seriously, as I do, the development of our student athletes, and not just on the athletic front. So we're going to continue to attack it.
John, is that something this summer, you've had Navy SEALs in and different programs and so forth. Is that something that takes on a bigger priority this off-season, addressing that specifically?
Well, obviously it's more important than the Navy SEALs training. And obviously we got a lot out of that. That was terrific. And there were a lot of things learned, from leadership to communication to accountability, that were great experiences for our men. But at this point, no question, Tup, I kind of look at it and I take a step back and I say, there's nothing, and I mean nothing, more important than character. Nothing. Is that at the forefront of my mind right now? There's no question about that. And so, just as you attack, if you think about it, you attack strength, you attack conditioning, you attack nutrition, you attack skill development. We want to continue to, work just as hard on their personal development. That should be first, and we've made that first. But I think, obviously, we're always, as I said earlier, looking for ways to get better and improve. And, we're going to continue to find creative ways. Josh has got some great ideas, and, we're going to come together and figure out how we continue to educate them further.
Coach, you always speak about character. The number one thing you always talk about is character. You never really praise their on-court skill without also talking about character.
Yeah.
You talk about mistakes, but these are 3 alleged crimes that are pretty serious. Are you concerned, at least going forward as a head coach, that 3 players have these alleged crimes of the severity?
Oh, very concerned. Very concerned about the allegations. There's no question about that. It's part of the reason we're sitting here today. There's no question about that. Why? And you said it. I talk about character more than I do probably the other things. I talk about choices. Wear those guys out with choices, because those things are important. Life is about choices, making good choices. And we're in the education business. I always try to remind myself why. Why did you get into this? Why did you want to be a coach at the very beginning when I first started? And that was to impact kids' lives, to educate them, that when they leave after being around our staff, their teammates, our support staff, that they leave transformed in a positive way, and that they've changed, and that they understand how to make good choices and good decisions. So am I concerned? Yes.
John, what's your interaction right now with Kendrick, Jalen, and LaRon, just going forward too?
Well, obviously, as Josh said earlier, I'm not allowed to comment specifically on, any of the 3 men at this point. What I can tell you, generally speaking, Jeremy, regardless of names, I've got 16 guys that just played for us. 2 seniors have finished up. We hope all 14 of the remaining ones are back. The message is crystal clear, really, to all those guys, and that is that they know that we're here to support them. They know that we believe in them. We also know it's our job to continue to teach them to make great choices and decisions. And at the same time, there's an accountability piece in this. You know, as I said earlier, you know, they will be held accountable to the standards of being an Illinois basketball player. And those standards are really high.
Can I follow up on my last question about when the guys come back?
Sure.
You got however many bodies down from injury, and now 3 guys that can't join the team and help out at practice. So what can you do when you get everybody back?
Sure, Rob. Well, our focus obviously is on them developing and getting better. Okay, what specific areas? The number one area this spring and summer is strength and conditioning. We've got to get stronger. We had a lot of young players play, and they got to get a lot stronger physically, whether that's gaining weight or a lot of times just by getting stronger, you gain when you're great athletes like these guys are, you'll gain the right weight. We'll have some target numbers for them. But strength and conditioning is at the forefront of my mind right now. You know, obviously we'll have skill development. We'll attack certain areas. You know, academics I mentioned earlier. You know, it's really, for me, especially in spring training camp, summer and fall, it becomes more individually based. During the 6 months of the season, it's team. But in spring, summer, and fall training camp, you know, we know that our team can be better if the individuals get better. And not only as players, but as people and as students. So we're on the attack. We've got a lot of resources here at the University of Illinois to use in all those areas. And we're going to continue to do that to make them the very best person, the very best player, the very best student they can be. And having said that, I think for me, if I could pick one thing, basketball-wise, it'd be strength and conditioning.
These incidents have come when players are either suspended or not actually part of the team, so to speak, they're hurt. Is that more concerning to you, and how do you balance that, knowing that some of these players have gotten in trouble when they're not playing?
I wouldn't say it's more concerning. I think that any time anybody who's a part of our family is alleged to have been involved in these kinds of situations, it's a concern. I think what it is possibly is as we start to look at risk factors and what can we do to be sure that we're prepared to help our student athletes and support them during difficult periods of their time on our campus. If that appears to be a pattern, then it maybe is something that we need to have a greater awareness around, and we might be able to be a little more proactive with how we're handling some of those student athletes who aren't day-to-day engaged with the practice and competition activity. So certainly not more concerning, but I think there is an opportunity there for us to perhaps dive a little more deeply into that particular issue and look if that might be something we can try and take advantage of in the future to make some improvements.
John, does the severity of what the 3 players are alleged of doing take it past simply making bad choices, in your opinion?
You know, it's tough for me to comment on that, Scott, because obviously the legal process has to take its course. Again, as we said earlier, do we recognize the severity of the allegations? Absolutely. Do I still think it's a choice? You know, when something like that happens, does it get back to a choice? Yeah, I do. I think it gets back to choices. I'm certainly not trying to oversimplify it or not downplay the seriousness of it. I understand how serious it is. I think everybody does. But I think at the core, that's the core. It's about choices.
It's kind of stacked up going back to last summer. To what extent do you worry that there's something in the culture of your locker room that's not quite right, or in your group of players?
I don't worry because I know who's in our locker room, meaning the culture piece. I know what we're about. I know how we do it. I know that who the guys are in our locker room. You know, am I concerned? Yes. That's why we're here today. And understandably so. Antennas up? Yes. Do I think that we have guys in that locker room that do have, you know, a lot of guys in there. You know, the guys are, you know, that are, you know, bought into our culture, that, you know, believe in what we're doing and where we're going. Absolutely. You know, I don't think it's hard for me to take three incidences, alleged incidences that we're talking about, David, and lump them into the whole. You know, obviously I'm in the battle with those guys, so I get to see it from a little bit different perspective. But you know, I believe in those guys, and I know they believe in what we're doing and how we do it.
Sense of what the players who haven't been involved in any of this, what their reaction is to what's going on?
You know, obviously they're concerned because it's their teammates. You know, we're a family. Those are their teammates. So obviously, you know, that effect is real. But you know, other than that, you know, obviously the thing we've tried to do with those guys is just continue to educate them, like we've talked about earlier, on making great choices. You know, moving forward. But yeah, I'm you know, certain they feel a lot like, you know, we do, that we're concerned, and you know, the effect on them is real. It is they are their teammates.
I think that your statement earlier said that the guys were suspended indefinitely from team activities. But during that period, are they able to come around to the office and meet with you? Are you able to what degree are you in contact with them and able to help them, you know, just from a friend standpoint, coach standpoint, whatever?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I said earlier, we're there for them, Mark, to support and encourage them, empower them to make great choices and to be accountable. We are. And so, yes, we have interaction with them. They are suspended indefinitely from team activities, as we said. You know, we expect them to, you know, to be in class and take care of their academic responsibilities. In some cases, obviously, you know, if it's an injury, for example, you know, a guy, you know, we don't want to certainly not take care of them from a student-athlete well-being standpoint, so they can do some of those things. But anytime it's a team activity, as the statement says, they're suspended from that.
Laura, do you have a question?
The unsaid thing here is that as it deals with recruiting, which is the heart of everything, is this in part your decision to make this particular press conference in order to get the word out that, and also, are you going to personally, Josh, help in that regard in recruiting?
Well, I think that, as I said at the outset, for me, I think as we spend more time together, you'll learn that this is kind of the way I operate. If there are things like this that beg for some attention, that require a conversation like this, then we're not going to hesitate to call an event like this and have the opportunity to discuss it. Obviously aware that there's been a lot of speculation in these last few weeks, despite what I'd said several weeks back, and thought it was important that we do come together and try and quell that speculation. I think the benefits of that are felt throughout our program, whether it's with our current student athletes, our current staff, or certainly with our prospective student athletes. There's no question about that. And to answer the last part of your question, yes, I'm happy to engage in that recruiting process in whatever way John and his staff determine would be the most helpful. But I feel, as you all know, very passionately about what we're doing here at Illinois, and if I can be of service and be an asset in the recruitment of the best and brightest to come here to Champaign, then I'm excited to be a part of that.
Can I follow up on that question? I saw Robin Kaler and Chris Harris when I walked in from University of PR. So I was wondering, at what level was the decision made that you had to make this statement today?
That was my decision. This is, you know, with all due respect to Robin, she's a wonderful colleague and a helpful resource in these situations. But and we're making the decisions. I'm making the decisions with respect to the program, and I felt like it was important that we come out and support and understand again the seriousness of these allegations. Help people realize that we're taking this situation very seriously. But also that John's going to continue to be our coach, and that's a message that I wanted to convey, and I wanted to convey it in this time frame.
Coach, you mentioned that you guys had ideas. Josh has ideas on how to change things and try to change things around. What specific things are you guys talking about doing to try to get the message more across the players and try to get them to kind of stem the tide, if you will, from what's been going on?
I don't know so much changes, although we're, as I always tell my staff, I'm open to a change if it can make us better. I think it's more enhancement because we already do a lot, an inordinate amount. But I think adding to that, I mentioned guest speakers as part of additional programming to assist with choices. We've really talked about that, probably more so than anything else. And I think it would be sometimes it's great to hear an outside voice. And so we've really talked about that primarily.
And I would add as well, we all realize that violence, and in particular sexual violence, have become hot-button issues in our society, and there's a lot of really wonderful resources out there right now to help educate people about the risks and the seriousness of these situations, to help prepare them to make good decisions. And so we'll seek the assistance of experts, people who have dealt with these kinds of issues in the past, and do everything we can to surround not only our basketball student athletes, but this is important to our entire student athlete population. We have 500 student athletes who would benefit from continuing to gain a better understanding of the risks involved and how we can, again, educate them about making good decisions.
Before we wrap up, are there any questions from the phone lines for either Josh or John?
Yeah, this is Shannon.
Yes.
I have a couple questions. First of all, have you, as part of the program before, you said you talked to the players a lot, but did you specifically, was there any programming about domestic violence, or is that a topic of conversation you had with players before this?
Yes. And we have, and not only, I'll give the Irwin Academic Center a lot of credit as well. They have a lot of programming there, not just for men's basketball, but for our student athletes in general. Kathy Kaler does a great job attacking a lot of different areas. Certainly that has been one of them. And then we do that on our own as well, in addition to that. So, yes, it has been addressed.
Do you feel like players, you talk about, I know all the time throughout the season about integrity and character and other things, put high value on the team and players. But do you feel like there's a disconnect, or players aren't exactly getting the message, and there's something maybe we need to do to hold them accountable in a different way, or just a different way of communicating with them?
Obviously, similar to David's question there, Shannon. I think we do a lot, and I do think, as I said earlier, I think we've demonstrated that we will hold our players accountable. I think that. At the end of the day, do I think they're not listening? No, I think they are. I think they have made some bad choices. Again, we take this seriously, the concern seriously, the allegation seriously. But I think, again, as Scott was alluding to earlier, I think at the core level, it comes down to making decisions, right decisions, doing the right thing, making great choices, and we've got to continue to educate them. I think it's impossible to educate them too much, and so we're going to continue to do that in even more pronounced fashion.
Okay, and I think Josh mentioned the word something about risk factors. Sorry, I can't hear real well on the line, but was there about things about what's beyond the lookout for risk factors? Were players having some type of issues? Did you notice anything that would have been raised some red flags with some of these guys?
Just to clarify, Shannon, when I was talking about risk factors, it was in response to a question about there seems to be a potential trend with student athletes who aren't actively engaged in the program from an activity standpoint, whether it's competition, practice, maybe due to an injury or some other situation. So just want to clarify what we were talking about when we were referencing those risk factors. We haven't done anything in terms of that granular level trying to determine, okay, these things are present in a particular student athlete's background. That would be a red flag or a risk factor, to use your words. So just to be clear on where we were at with that particular comment.
So with that being said, was there anything that would have raised the red flag?
Obviously, Shannon, as we said earlier, I'm not allowed to talk about certain specific individuals or the instances. But you know, in the recruiting process, we evaluated all 16 of our players that were on our team this past year, and look at a lot of different things. Obviously, personal things, academic things, basketball things, skill set, talent. You know, a lot of different things to find out if they're a great fit for the University of Illinois. And we make a commitment as a staff that we're going to bring in players and student athletes that fit well here, that fall in line with our core values and our standards. So I can certainly tell you that, generally speaking.
You met together with the whole. One thing for me to your mind is it was one of the good choices back when you lived today that had a lot in domestic violence and bad choice. I don't know, is it more than that? Is it more of a character issue? I'm just curious about the terminology there.
You know, I think, Shannon, it's interesting that you mentioned that. A couple different people have alluded now to, you know, John unquestionably reiterates this emphasis on making good decisions and gets into very specific detail when he talks to the student athletes. And I think, and people have said, well, does this mean that they're not hearing the message? I don't think it means that at all. I think that if you ask a student athlete when they're sitting in the meeting, hey, what are your intentions? They're all going to say the right thing. And you know, the question is, 5 hours later, 5 days later, 5 months later, when a particular situation presents itself, how do they react? And in some cases, some conduct issues, if you will, are very choice-driven. Others are, the choice is to not put yourself in a situation that's going to lead itself to a particular outcome. And that, I think, is as much what we're talking about as anything. Is sometimes you have to be able to look an hour, 2 hours down the road and say, okay, if I make this choice now, where is this going to lead me a couple hours in the future? And you avoid putting yourself in those situations where you're in an environment that might lend itself to these outcomes.
Okay, thank you.
Have you met collectively with the squad to discuss the whole issue?
I've met collectively with them a lot. You're saying since the three? Yes, twice.
John, follow-up Tuck's question. Are the 3 suspended guys allowed to come and work out, lift weights, conditioning, shoot free throws?
Those guys are allowed to do what they need to do academically. In fact, they need to do that. And then, obviously, we're here to service them academically with Irwin and put them in the best position to do well academically. That's first and foremost. In terms of athletically, at this point, it's been exclusive to treatment and rehab for player or players that have issues. We certainly don't want to cheat them of that opportunity to get physically healthy. But in terms of basketball-related activities or strength and conditioning and all that, no.
Do we have one final question on the phone line?
Josh, this is John Savini with Orange and Blue News. You said it's time to roll up the sleeves and get something done, and that the basketball program is doing the right thing to continue to build a championship caliber program. What have you seen that they've done to kind of get them to the point where you think this is something you want to keep working with?
I used to have great confidence and trust in John and his staff. I've had a chance to spend quite a bit of time with them over the last weeks. Been around. The program was, of course, over in Indianapolis for the tournament. I think that John brings a tremendous energy, strong vision for the program. I think he's an excellent teacher, strong communicator. I think he's a good recruiter. I think he develops strong relationships with our student athletes. They understand that he cares about them as people. I've had a chance to interact with some of our parents, their families. People understand the kind of man and the kind of leader that John Groce is. And it gives me great confidence that we'll be able to build this going forward into the program that we can all be proud of.
Last question.
Yeah, Coach, this is Illini basketball, a very loyal fan base, a fan base that's very knowledgeable. A lot of fans are watching this right now.
Sure.
A lot have many opinions on what they feel and what they're hearing and seeing. What's your message to the fan base going forward with this program?
Well, obviously, we're excited about having the opportunity to move forward. I think that, for us, nothing has changed. I mentioned the mission earlier. I believe in where we're going. I believe in our players. I believe in our staff. Can we get better? We're going to get better. We always evaluate in the spring ways to get better. We want to be on the cutting edge. We get some guys healthy, continue to move the thing forward, continue to move recruiting forward. We're excited about all of that. But we're confident, that we can continue to move and take the necessary steps forward to build a championship caliber basketball program that our fan base, that our alums, that the university, that our community is very, very proud of and wants. We believe that. And we've just, at this point, got to stay the course and continue to build. And the way you do that, I know this sounds simple, but you get up every day and I tell the guy, you got to swing the hammer. You just keep swinging. And you work at it every day. You do the right things every day. You keep moving the thing forward every day. And then at the end of the day, if you do that in successive days over and over and over and over and over again, good things will happen. And we're confident that that's what's going to happen.
And if I could piggyback on that too, I think it's important to reiterate, and I've said this in other contexts, this isn't going to happen just with the men inside Ubben. It's not going to happen just with the people in Bielefeld. This is a community effort. This is involving the entire Illini nation. And we've got the best fans anywhere. And they're an unbelievable group of people, our alumni, our supporters, our fan base. I love how passionate they are, and it's never been more on display than over these last weeks as we've had the chance to travel around the state and spread the good word about the Fighting Illini. And so we need them. We need our fans to step up and support us. We understand that we've had some challenges these last months. We're turning that page, and we are moving forward. In order for us to do that to the level that we all expect, we all have to work on this together. We all have to do it together. Otherwise, we're not going to get where we want to go.
Off the subject, is Malcolm Hill going to try out with the NBA?
It's a great question, Lauren. It's interesting because for those of you, some of you may know or not know, the NBA rules have changed for declaration. So you have until April 24th to declare. You could get invited to the combine. You're allowed to work out with every NBA team at least once up until May the 25th, which is the day that you can then officially pull out. The way the new rules are set up, I'll be honest, we've talked with multiple guys about that possibility within the new format, because that being what's best for them and their families. I mentioned earlier, it's the time of year where we look at it a little bit more individually based. And, we'll know more right now. As of today, no one has done that. Could that happen moving forward as we gather information, continue to have conversations with some of our young men and their families? It's certainly a possibility.